This week on Heroes, Made in the USA. If the first American in space isn't a hero, no one is. America's premier astronaut, Admiral Alan Shepard, goes to space camp, looking for the right stuff in tomorrow's space explorers. He soars up into the air like an eagle before piercing the water with hardly a ripple. He's Greg Louganis, gold medal diver. Vietnam vet Ron Kovic lived the platoon experience. He also shares the goal of that award-winning movie, to make sure it never happens again.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. Welcome to Heroes, Made in the USA. In the ranks of American heroes, our first subject is a Hall of Famer. One of the original Mercury 7 astronauts with the right stuff, Admiral Alan Shepard was the first American in space and the fifth man to walk on the moon. A product of the space program's heyday, Admiral Shepard now lends his time and reputation to helping it recover from the Challenger disaster. One such effort is stimulating the interest of America's youth in the final frontier.
Alan Shepard put his life on the line in 1961. The United States was desperate to catch up with the Russians, and Shepard was the first American to ride a rocket into outer space.
All right, liftoff and the clock has started. Yes, sir, reading you loud and clear.
Shepard was one of the legendary Mercury 7, the guys with the right stuff, who would lead the American charge into that final frontier.
The first flight I made was 16 minutes. I was just busy every second. No time to reflect, really. Just do this, do that.
If he was afraid that day, he didn't show it. He was just doing his job.
You know that there's a chance of something going wrong, but you know that you have the opportunity to correct that. Nervous? Yeah. Scared? No. I mean, stark fear, you can't do anything when you're afraid. So you're nervous. You're nervous because you might make a mistake, and that would, of course, ruin your whole day.
But his mission was flawless. Alan Shepard inaugurated the U.S. manned spaceflight program and became a hero to some very impressed youngsters.
This is the one which I flew. I mean, not the one that I flew, but it's exactly like it, because the one I flew ended up in the water. When they closed the door...
Today, Shepard has a new mission. He's working with kids at the United States Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. To them, he's a living legend, straight from the pages of their history books. And recent history has made all of them wonder about the dangers of space travel. There had been so many successful launches over the years, we had forgotten what was really at stake.
4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
As Challenger rose to its awful destiny that cold January morning, we weren't prepared to lose them, not ready for that instant that transformed them from adventurers to casualties. The tragedy destroyed our naive sense of security and made us wonder why anybody would want to take such a chance in the future.
Having been with NASA many, many years, the fact they've had problems doesn't mean the dedication is any less. And I think all they need is a little kind of kick in the fanny, get back on their toes and get going again. In 2.5 minutes, all this big tank of fuel and oxygen is all burned up in those 5 big engines in just 2.5 minutes. Now, isn't that rapid?
Shepard has always believed the benefits of space travel were worth the risks, especially if it meant the chance to go to the moon.
Tower cleared.
During much of the Apollo program, Shepard had been grounded by a nagging ear problem. He'd had to watch 2 other missions go to the moon ahead of him. But with his problem corrected, Apollo 14 was his chance to live his dreams.
Even though you know exactly what the moon's supposed to look like and feel like, actually being there and doing it, looking at a rock and knowing that that rock has not been seen, touched, moved by anybody for 4.3 billion years. I mean, it kind of blows your mind.
And of course, when you've got the right stuff, you make your moonwalk one they'll never forget. You even get in a round of lunar golf.
You take a very slow swing, hit the ball like this, and it goes up and it went on and on and on, went over 200 yards, and it stayed in the air almost 30 seconds before it finally came down. I hit 2 of them, and they're still up there.
When Apollo 14 splashed home safely, Shepard's spaceflight days were over. but his passion for the space program has remained steady despite the recent loss of lives. Now there's a new generation at Space Camp that will continue on the journey that Shepard began a quarter-century ago. During a week jammed with activity, a kid can find out what it's like to train for a space shuttle mission. And believe it or not, enrollment at Space Camp has more than doubled since the Challenger explosion.
Okay, now you can start your hop. That's it.
This may look like child's play, but Alan Shepard sees a more serious purpose to these games.
The one thing that keeps the United States in a position of world leadership is our technological capability. I look at the space program as being a booster, a creator. Sure, it's fun to talk about the excitement and glamour going to the moon and back, but the real value is the technology it creates that helps everyday life and keeps us competitive with the rest of the world.
There just might be a future astronaut or space scientist here, a child who will remember meeting one of the men who was there at the beginning. Today, Alan Shepard is a champion of the kids who will inherit his legacy, but he is never far from the memory of his own accomplishments in space.
I never look at the moon but what I don't think about going there. Maybe only fleetingly now, but I still think, sure, it's a part of my life. Maybe I'll go back someday. Long gray beard, cane, get out there and walk around. Get my 1/6 gravity, yeah, hit another golf shot. Get my 1/6 gravity cane and go up there.
Coming up next on Heroes Made in the USA, gold medal diver Greg Louganis and Vietnam vet Ron Kovic fights to keep America out of another Vietnam.
In 1984, Greg Louganis was the only American diver to win the Olympic gold. He made us proud to be Americans. Greg fine-tuned his body so close to perfection, he was poetry in motion. And now he makes himself an example to young people of what they might achieve by avoiding alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs.
Well, as I'm walking up the platform, usually what I'll do is I'll sing a song to myself, especially through the 1984 Olympics. My song was Believe in Yourself from The Wiz. Walking out to the end of the platform on my last dive, and you can see me mumbling to myself, and what I'm saying to myself is, no matter what happens, my mother's still gonna love me. The last seconds right before the dive, I try and blank out my mind and just allow my body to do what it's trained to do.
I remember when I was going in the water, I knew that I had done a good dive. I knew that I had hit it. And when I came up, I was so ecstatic.
In the manner of a champion, Greg Louganis is the first male diver to win 2 Olympic gold medals in 56 years. His perfect performances with rapid twists and somersaults stunned his audience. Within a short period of time, his picture was on magazine covers around the world. Today, Louganis is the all-American boy, and young people want to be just like him. But one incident made Louganis realize what being a role model is all about.
In 1983, I ran into a little 12-year-old boy on our diving team, and he was in the parking lot having a cigarette. And I walked over to him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, when I grow up, I want to be just like you, and I know you smoke cigarettes." And so that, I was taken back, and, you know, I couldn't respond.
Louganis stopped smoking and made a few other healthy changes in his lifestyle. Then he decided to share his life experiences with young people throughout the United States.
I had a real problem with alcohol. I realized that the reasons why I drank was to escape.
What I do is I share my experiences with the young kids, and I think that that's so important because so many people are just lecturing them, telling them, don't, and see what it gives them. It gives them hope to say that, hey, they can make it too.
Many will try to follow in Greg's footsteps, but few really understand this complex, motivated, and selfless young man as Coach Ron O'Brien does.
When I first started coaching Greg, he was going through a lot of problems as an adolescent that all adolescents go through. And at the same time, he was thrust into the limelight nationally and internationally. And he was a very shy person and had to do a lot of interviews, had difficulty with that. And so his practices were sometimes very emotional. And it was a matter of digging into what his problems were and trying to help him with them.
The way that Ron has helped me is obviously, he's a very good technician, but more than that, he's a friend. He not only coached the dive specifically, but he also got me to open up and talk to him about problems that I might be having, and taught me how to trust.
What's the most important thing about diving? That's right, supervision, and also...
Today, Louganis is giving back to young people what Ron O'Brien gave to him, the friendship, the trust, and, of course, safe diving techniques.
I work with National Spawn Pool Institute to promote diving safety. The reason why I'm taking the time to do the diving safety program and many of the other programs is that responsibility that I have accepted as a role model. An instructor that you'll see every day who's teaching you how to dive has a certain amount of impact.
Louganis' impact on his sport and young people is tremendous. He has approached both as an art, complementing them with his studies in dance and theater. And his enthusiasm for life, his ability to give, is never ending.
It's great that he's willing to give back to young people and share his experiences. I have never seen him refuse an autograph or refuse an opportunity to go and speak with youngsters, provided he had the time and it didn't interfere with his training or his competition schedule.
Louganis definitely believed in himself throughout the '84 Olympics, and even now, as he broadens his horizons and reaches out to young people.
I feel that it's important, the youth is important to me. I'm doing a lot of appearances for young people, talking to high school, junior high students. If I want to be remembered as a diver, I want to be remembered as being strong and graceful. As far as a person, I think I would want to be remembered like most people as making a difference. I think that would be nice.
Coming up next on Heroes Made in the USA, Ron Kovic lived the drama of Platoon and a very different kind of hometown hero.
10 years before the film Platoon explored the shattering experiences of Vietnam vets, Ron Kovic wrote Born on the 4th of July, a powerful account of his evolution from gun-ho Marine to passionate peace activist. Using his devastating injury as a constant reminder of the folly of war, Ron Kovic is an American hero as patriotic as his prophetic date of birth.
I'm very proud of my work as an activist, and I will be an activist for peace for the rest of my life. That's part of my survival. That's part of my reason for living.
Ron Kovic was born on the 4th of July. He lived out an all-American boyhood during the post-war baby boom in Long Island, New York. His is the story of what happens to a little kid who starts out playing with toy guns and winds up being nearly destroyed by the real thing. Ron Kovic grew up a patriot. In 1964, at the age of 18, he proudly joined the U.S. Marines.
I left that house that day. I said goodbye to my father and my mother. That was the end of the innocence. That's where it ended right there, that day. That was a turning point in my life. When I left this house for the last time to become a Marine.
Ron served one tour of duty in Vietnam. When he came home in 1967, he was outraged at the sight of anti-war protesters and quickly volunteered for a second tour. It was after his return to Vietnam that he himself began to have questions about the war.
I saw people totally destroyed by this war. I saw babies who had been napalmed by American planes. I heard them scream every night. I saw a Korean civilian who lost both of his legs.
Kovic's service ended abruptly in 1968. when a North Vietnam sniper's bullet pierced his spinal cord and left him paralyzed from the mid-chest down. It was 4 years later, at the Republican National Convention in Miami, when Ron Kovic first emerged as a spokesman for the Vietnam veterans against the war.
I gave 3/4 of my body in Vietnam. What do? They run us over, they kill us in the streets. So either they kill you in Vietnam, or they kill you back home in the streets. You can't win as a Vietnam veteran in this country.
Ron's courage in Vietnam earned him 13 Medals of Valor. The courage of his convictions at home got him arrested 15 times.
I don't want what happened to me to have to happen to another generation of American boys. I want people to understand how meaningless war is. I want people to know that it's more than John Wayne and glory and romance.
At first, it was rough going for Ron and the Vietnam vets. People just weren't ready for what they had to say.
Nobody likes war. The best way to get it over is to win it. How would you like so why don't we win it and get the hell out of here? Who are you going to defeat?
The vets felt resistance everywhere they turned, but because men like Ron Kovic stuck to their beliefs, now, 15 years later, America is finally listening to its Vietnam veterans. Ron himself became the inspiration for the film Coming Home and the song Born in the USA, and he's now emerged as one of the most significant fighters in the national anti-war movement.
I believe in this country. We can change this government. We can turn it around. You can feel proud of this country again.
You may not agree with his politics, but it's hard to dispute Ron Kovic's effectiveness or conviction. But the best person to tell Ron's story is Ron. He's written a book called Born on the 4th of July, as well as several short stories.
Resurrection is about a paralyzed, a disabled veteran who wakes up. He's been paralyzed for 16 years. And he wakes up one morning, one beautiful spring morning. He wakes up and something's different, something's happened. He can feel again, he can stand again. Suddenly he gets everything back. He's so happy for this miracle that's occurred in his life. He's been given his body back. Finally he decides that he wants to go to his hometown, back to the yard that he played in and the trees that he climbed and the parallel bars that he swung from. This is where I grew up. I walked down that street right there to school. I walked down that street. This is my street. Boy, it's changed. A little bit it's changed. That's the Ambrosini's house. This is precious earth. I would fight for this yard, this backyard, but I can't understand going 13,000 miles and fighting in a country that I have nothing against. Suddenly something snaps in his back and he's paralyzed again. He begins to commit himself to being paralyzed again. But he won't give up on life. He's determined to keep going. He had to rise out of this deep, dark prison. He had to come back. He knew the power he had. The power to make people remember, to make them as angry as he was every day of his life, every moment of his existence. He'd come back very soon, and he'd make it like all the stories of the baseball players he had read about when he was a kid. He's picking up the ball. He's running across the field. Kovic's making a terrific comeback, folks. A terrific comeback.
First, there was Rin Tin Tin and Lassie. Now, there's Bella. For the Benedetti family of Danville, California, their pet Bella is no ordinary dog. Bella saved the life of 18-month-old Stephen, who had fallen into the backyard swimming pool.
Bella came tearing in the house, found me in the bathroom. She barked twice at me, which she never does. She never barks in the house. And then she started crying, and she turned around and she ran out. And went over to the pool by the ladder where Stephen was face down in the water. And she bent down with her paws and her head and shoulders, reached down in the pool trying to grab him up.
The paramedics said that without the dog's quick actions, the little boy would have suffered brain damage within another 30 seconds.
And I've always told people that she's a second mother, and I think this proves it. Baba, that's right. His first words were Baba for Bella.
Bella the dog, this week's hometown hero.
Whether they are in water, in space, or in war, American heroes all share the right stuff.